Your truth. Uncensored. Discover Real.video.
There's an extraordinary new TV show on Netflix that you've got to see, because this show inadvertently demonstrates how fake news media brainwashes people into thinking that false facts are true, verified reality. And in fact, the show is not even trying to demonstrate this. It's actually a reality TV magic show, and it's called the Carbonaro Effect. And it features a young, basically a sleight of hand / social engineering magician named Michael Carbonaro. And he's quite brilliant in this show. This is why I recommend you watch it. And what he does is, in contrast to most forms of so-called performance magic or street magic, where subjects who are observing the magic, they know that they are about to see magic, right? So if you see, old school like David Copperfield on the street doing magic, or some of these other newer magicians, they're out on the street doing magic, the subjects know, hey, I'm about to see magic. And then they can't wait to be wowed by some incredible illusion by the magician, right? That's sort of the conventional way magic is done. And there are a lot of, great magical illusions that are accomplished that way. But what Michael Carbonaro does is, frankly, genius. It's quite different. He performs magic in front of subjects and then pretends like it's not magic at all. He pretends like this is reality, that the thing that he just did that violated the laws of physics or violated the laws of gravity, and I'll talk about the definition of magic here in a second, but he pretends in front of these other people that the crazy, insane thing that he just did is totally normal. And in many of his bits, he'll even say to the person, what, you didn't know about this new product that does this? And it's some crazy, insane, magical thing, like you squirt this goo into a plastic mold of an amphibian, and then you hit it with a light, and then a frog pops out, right? So that's obviously not possible. But he does that convincingly using sleight of hand, and combined with this narrative, and then the subjects that he's performing for, which in most cases are sort of random retail customers, they are amazed and astonished, and they say something like, "Oh, how did you do that? Whoa, what is that?" And his response is just genius. He always says, "What, you didn't know about that? All the stores are doing this now. What, you haven't seen this yet?" Now, this response is amazing, and it demonstrates how fake news works. Now, the New York Times is fake news. Washington Post is fake news. CNN is fake news. Almost everything that you're told by the so-called mainstream media is fake news. But they play it off in exactly the same way that Michael Carbonaro does. In other words, they print some complete BS story, total fiction. Like the other day, the New York Times ran a story that claimed 80,000 people died from the flu last winter. 80,000 people. And of course, the whole point of the story was everybody should rush out and get a flu shot. Even though scientifically most flu shots don't work. They have the wrong viral strain. They're actually last year's strain. And, people like myself who never get flu shots or vaccines, we almost never get sick at all. Well, why is that? I mean, I could talk about the scientific and medical reasons behind that, but the New York Times is pushing BS. Oh, 80,000 people died from the flu last year. And then when someone expresses an opinion like, whoa, how can that be? The New York Times and CNN and all the left-wing media, they do the same thing that Michael Carbonaro does. They say, what, you didn't know? Everybody knows that 80,000 people died. That's like common knowledge. That's what Carbonaro is doing in his show. So he's demonstrating how fake news works from the establishment media. But that's not his intention. The intention of his show is to be entertainment. And it is very entertaining. And I do think you should watch the show. I think you'll learn a lot. But at another level, way beyond the entertainment factor, he is demonstrating social engineering. Because, let's face it, there are a lot of magicians in the world who can do sleight of hand. And most of what Michael Carbonaro does is sleight of hand magic. He's mostly palming objects. He palms a fish, he palms a frog, he palms an orange, and so on. And he's very good at it. But there's nothing that amazing about good sleight of hand magic. There are, 10,000 performers probably in the United States who can do good sleight of hand magic and palm objects and so on. But what makes Michael Carbonaro kind of genius in this is that he wraps a narrative around the sleight of hand and he hides the magic inside a social construct, a new construct of reality. And then he forces the observer to conform to that reality by insinuating that that reality is completely normal. In one scene, he's a bartender, and he's actually in a bar, and there are real customers coming in, and a customer is ordering, I don't know, some kind of drink, and then Carbonaro will point to this little display of, I think they were called like buckshot. And he says, "Oh, have you seen buckshot here? This is really cool." And the customer seems very disinterested. "No, I haven't seen buckshot, whatever." And Carbonaro says, "No, you should check this out. These are really convenient." And he pulls out this buckshot, which is a very thin, folded, little small paper bag with some kind of a branding logo printed on it. He says, "No, this is great, because what you can do is when you unfold this, then," and he starts to unfold it and he demonstrates it, and he does a little bit of sleight of hand, and he pulls out a full shot glass that contains a shot of, let's say, whiskey. And he says, "Yeah, this is compressed whiskey, and you can buy this for $1, and you can have a shot of whiskey. You can put it in your pocket, you can put it in your wallet, you can have it to go. It's very convenient." And the customer is like, "Whoa!" All of a sudden the customer is paying attention, and they're like, "Whoa! How does that work? How can you fit a shot glass inside a little flat folded paper bag?" And again, the genius of this is what Carbonaro does. He says, "Oh, and at this point, he makes up some really hilarious BS, usually like some scientific jargon reasoning. He'll say something like, "Oh, it's the carbonation, the air pressure, or they pack it at high altitude where there's lower air pressure, and it compresses because of the negative ions." Or he comes up with some really incredibly funny stuff. And the consumer is always like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." and of course, myself watching this, as someone who is trained in laboratory science, I run a mass spec laboratory with multiple mass spec instruments. I'm a published science author, and so on. I'm thinking this is really hilarious, because apparently members of the public, anytime you say, like negative ions, quantum fibers, like whatever, apparently people believe this stuff when they've just seen some incredible sleight of hand magic. So again, the genius of the show that Carbonaro does here, and I think the show is called the Carbonaro Effect. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name. I'm sure he's used to that, but I think it's Carbonaro. And the genius of it is that he wraps the magic inside this social construct of redefining your reality and then demanding that you conform with this new reality that he has put forward. In other words, his belief and congruent verbal confirmation of the reality that he is claiming exists causes the observers to immediately conform to that because of social engineering.